In this video, we're heading into the forest where we'll flip over and peek under 100 stones in search of various creatures. Right after entering the forest, I spotted the first large stone. I turned it over and found this strange centipede. It was acting oddly. Instead of running away, it just sat calmly on my hand and cleaned its antenna. On a piece of old bark, I found a tiny frightened spider and a white larvae of some beetle. That's a great start. Then I came across this large shiny dung beetle. It's harmless to humans and plays an important ecological role by processing animal waste. Dung beetles bury dung in the soil, creating underground chambers where the females lay their eggs. They're able to roll dung balls many times their own weight. Some species can move up to 1,000 times their body mass, which is like a human dragging a train. Taking a closer look, I noticed that the beetle was covered with dozens of tiny creatures. These appeared to be microscopic mites, almost impossible to see with a naked eye. As it turns out, these mites don't feed on the beetle itself. Instead, they eat fly larvae found in the piles of dung. Since they're so small, traveling even a single meter could take them an entire day. So they hitch a ride on the beetle, using it as a taxi to the dung ball. Under the stone number 25, I didn't find anything, but right next to it, I noticed a stump with a peeling bark. It was covering a colony of ants, busily carrying their eggs somewhere. Also, there was an unusually large egg, perhaps holding a future queen, much bigger than the rest of the ants. I moved towards the remains of an old tree, and found something that looked like a fairly large caterpillar underneath it. And just look at how beautiful it is. The bristly hairs on the caterpillar aren't just for decoration. They make them appear more intimidating and less appealing to birds, lizards and other predators. The hairs mimic spines or resemble stinging insects. The old tree was covered in a loose bark that peeled off with a satisfying crack and a cloud of dust. On the inner side of one of the pieces, I noticed a clump of dirt. Using tweezers, I carefully dug into the clump and discovered these small round eggs, possibly laid by a beetle or even a bird. Nearby, I found a hollow hiding a casing of an insect larvae that had already emerged and flown off. On the lower part of the tree, I came across several strange alien-looking eggs with holes in them, releasing a fine brown powder. Most likely, these were fungi dispersing their spores. Under stone number 46, I found this round, curious-looking thing. It seemed to be an orange slug with a large opening on the side of its body, which is used to breathe. Interestingly, some studies show that slug mucus contains antibacterial compounds that can help protect the slug from bacteria and infections. Though once this disinfectant gets on your hands, it's definitely not easy to wash off. You won't believe this, but near stone number 57, I discovered two butterflies stuck together on a blade of grass. I felt sorry for them. Maybe they were just born like this, just like people are born as conjoined twins. I had scissors in my backpack, and theoretically, I could have separated them using the slug's mucus as an antiseptic. But I didn't have any thread or needle to stitch their skin, so I simply placed them gently on a patch of moss, hoping nature would take care of them. Right next to the butterflies, under an old piece of bark, I found these snails that looked like freshwater aquarium snails. What were they doing here? Most likely the nearby stream had dried up, and these aquatic snails had taken refuge in the moist space under the decaying bark. After flipping a few more stones, I stumbled upon a car tire in the middle of the forest. Who brought it here? And more importantly, why? There were some kind of tunnels underneath it, so I quickly put the tire back in its place. While observing this beautiful beetle, I noticed some movements on the bark of a tree in front of me. Looking closer, I saw it was a brown lizard. It was climbing along the trunk in search of food. but froze the moment it noticed me. On the lower part of its back, I spotted what looked like an old wound. It remained perfectly still, assuming I couldn't see it. I decided to touch it even though I was a bit scared that it might bite me. Further down the trail, I came across a slug that was eating one of its own kind. Yes, slugs sometimes engage in cannibalism to survive, but thanks to this, we got a detailed view of the slug's feeding organ, which probably contains tiny teeth. Otherwise, how could it so easily tear into the flesh? Then, instead of flipping over another stone, I decided to lift an old mushroom. Under it, I found a little bag with a piece of rye bread, a can of food, and a spoon. Let's open it. Wow, that's my favorite canned dish, a mix of chickpea, tuna, and vegetables. What a coincidence! I quickly had a snack and continued on my way. After half a day of walking, I reached a river that stretched deep into the forest. A duck was swimming down the stream, but as soon as it saw me, it turned around and started paddling away. In the water, I accidentally spotted a beautiful mussel. Once the shell was opened, I didn't find the mussel itself, but I did discover some other creatures inside. It looked like a tiny crocodile. Let's try to take it out and have a closer look. I rinsed it in the water to clean it off. It seemed to be some kind of a shrimp or a crayfish larvae. It looked a bit scary, but behaved quite peacefully. I decided to put it back into the shell and return it to the river. There was a huge anthill full of large forest ants at the river bank. There were thousands of them. They immediately swarmed my shoes and started biting them. That's when I had a thought. What would happen if I placed a hand on top of the anthill? Would the ants attack it too? And if so, how painful would it be? I had no choice but to try the experiment on myself. From the very first second, I began to feel dozens of bites on the palm of my hand as I touched the anthill. Then, more ants started climbing up my arm, but I held on. Within 20 seconds, my entire arm was covered in ants, and about half of them were trying to bite me. The rest were just exploring it and checking out my watch, since they had probably never seen one before. Just look at this ant trying its hardest to bite me. He had already left a little scratched path on my skin. If I had to rate the pain on a scale from 1 to 10, I'd give it a 4 overall, but this particular ant bit harder than the rest, around 5 or 6. To get them off my arm, all I had to do was shake it really well, and the ants scattered in all directions. Towards the evening, I came across some strange formations on the trunk of a fallen tree. At first, I thought they were mushrooms, but when I pressed on them slightly, their outer shell burst, releasing a bright orange liquid. It looked quite appetizing, but most likely it wasn't edible. Next, I decided to flip over another stone, and it's a good thing I took some time exploring the area, because there was a real cobra waiting for me inside. Okay, maybe it wasn't exactly a cobra, but it definitely didn't look friendly, and I'm pretty sure that its bite could be venomous. What an adventure! Luckily, I had to turn just one final stone, number 100, and underneath it was a tiny little worm. I hope you enjoyed this journey and will give it a like for all the risks I took handling all these strange forest creatures.